This afternoon, the Social Enterprise Development Foundation, Ghana, is calling for the reintroduction of road toll collection in Ghana. The group, in its 2023 budget analysis report, says the suspension of the revenue measure in 2022 hampered government's revenue generation, arguing that government is now struggling to generate the needed revenue to undertake its numerous developmental projects. Per a 5-year Ghana analysis, it is emerging that the country's tax revenue per GDP has been below the expectations, with the 2024 projections, for instance, of a range of 13.6% being the lowest among some 33 African countries in 2023, which all have an average of 15.6%. Well, what measure of funding can the road toll policy bring to the nation? We've been tracking that up, going back to our own analysis of the kind of revenue measures we've been getting from the road tolls. Here are excerpts on your screens right now, giving you a breakdown of what the road toll analysis looks like. So when you look at the average annual revenue, we're getting somewhere around 72 million Ghana cedis on the average revenue per day, amounting to some 197,260 Ghana cedis. And in terms of the number of public toll points that we had prior to the reversal of the policy, a total of 38, giving us that significant amount of money, a reason for which the belief is that the revenue that we've lost so far as of the time the policy directive was given by the Transport Ministry amounted to some 95.6 million Ghana cedis. Is the reason for which Ghana is making that keen argument, asking for the reintroduction of the road tolls. The Road Workers Union, or Road Toll Workers Union, are equally joining that fray, asking for some measures to be brought back, which will also create associated employment opportunities. So I want to bring in now two individuals helping us do the discussion. Tajuddin Mohammed Abdullahi is Programs Officer for Ghana, joining us via Zoom now, and also Edward Duncan is Secretary of the Ghana Toll Workers Union. Thank you, gentlemen, for spending some time with us here on the polls. I want to start off with you, Tajuddin, looking at the significant revenue loss that the country has been experiencing, 95 million plus per our last check, and that figure is certainly going up. So we're also looking at, the difficulty that government also finds itself in, the fact that there is a political cost to it, because the assurance is the e-levy would work. We don't need road tolls. We're between a rock and a hard place. You can imagine where Ghana and by extension government is finding itself. Tajuddin?
Yeah. Good afternoon to you, and then good afternoon to your cherished viewers. I think that our cause is very simple, because, for example, we know that for this year's budget, government is projected to spend over 226 billion, with revenue mobilization around 176 billion. So that means that there's going to be some kind of revenue shortfalls. Over the years, government has been struggling to kind of find its program and activities. So it was quite surprising to us that the road toll that was actually generating a minimum of 72 billion cedis in a year was removed. And subsequently, this program was reintroduced. But over a year ago, since it was introduced, we do not know why government is still failing to implement it. More than a year that it was actually reintroduced again. We think that this is a kind of a low-hanging fruit that government can really kind of track and mobilize revenue from, to help it implement its planned activities. So, which is why we are actually asking the government to bring the road toll back. And we are also
Tajuddin, I hope you can hear me now. Yes. When you say that's a low-hanging fruit, that's where a lot of economists will have challenges with you. The government is supposed to be innovative about its, revenue mobilization. Yet you put that in your report, pointing out that it's almost as though government could rake in a lot of money without its associated cost and the political bearing on that.
So do we know why the government decided to take it off?
Yeah, but they've provided the reasons, security implications as well, they say.
But the fact is that we're losing monies, because if you consider the amount of money that the country was generating from the fund, at least 72 billion cedis could do something. And we are talking about a government that over the years struggles to kind of fund, is always there. You have our expenditure being higher than our revenue mobilization target. And so we are thinking that one of the ways that government can shore up its revenue mobilization is actually to bring back this rule too. So that is a basis for our call.
Okay, we'll take a look at some of the other recommendations you're making per the analysis of the 2024 budget statement, I should say. We'll get into all of those ones, but the Ghana Toll Workers Union are also joining the conversation. They seem to be agreeing with you on this point, and it's a good time also to hear from Eddie Duncan, who's, of course, a leading figure of that group. Eddie, of course, you've been listening to the conversation, the argument from Sen Ghana. But I recall that you've tried on countless occasions. You've been on this show as well, asking government to consider that as a major policy measure. Now, of course, the science is backing it, isn't it?
Yes. Good afternoon, Blessed, and good afternoon to your viewers, cherished viewers as well, and to all Ghana Toll Workers, and to the panelists that you have on there. I mean, this is a call that you rightly put it. It's something that we have called for over all these years. We have made a point that the government decision, first of all, to scrap tolls collection was unnecessary. It was needful. It was needless, sorry. And the reasons that they gave when you were speaking, you said something about security. The reasons which they cited, we've said it time and time again that they are not true. There was no point in time where there was any fight or fisticuff between toll collectors and drivers. So to use that as a basis for rushing and closing down toll is rather unfortunate, coming from honorable members of parliament. So I am happy that now a lot of civil society and a lot of Ghanaians have seen the need for the government to bring back the tolls. It's just unfortunate that it's the government that does not see the need to bring back tolls, seeing that we need a lot of revenue. There were two high points for me that I expected the government to at least reintroduce tolls. When they saw that e-levy did not make the revenue that they were expecting. So that was a point that we expected them to bring it. And then also, when we realized that we don't have much money, that we need to go to IMF, we felt that IMF encourages the government to generate revenue internally. So we thought that, okay, since the structure and everything is already there, the government should quickly reintroduce toll collection. But unfortunately, they did not. For whatever reason, we cannot really tell. So I am happy. Quite recently, I heard that we heard that Concerned Drivers Union also was making a point or making a statement that the government needs to reintroduce toll collections. Mm-hmm. So indeed, I mean, if Concerned Drivers Union are saying it, toll workers are saying it, and now civil society and most organizations are also saying that the government should reintroduce toll collection. It really beats my mind as to why the government doesn't.
I guess you're supporting all of this because of the employment implications. Simply because you guys are out of employment and you believe it would just be a way of solving your challenge.
That is a point. Apart from that, too, we're looking about raking revenue for the government, raking revenue for maintenance of roads, because road collections, toll collections is for the maintenance of roads. I mean, that aside, so the money, I mean, even if, and we make an argument, even if the government is not making any money from toll collection, but is able to employ about 800 workers who, if we were not employed, could be engaged in other activities that could pose insecurity to the government. Because at another interview, I made a point that some of our members are people who come from the hinterlands, where there's galamsey and everything going on. So if these people, because you have taken their legal means of making money away from them and they have access to all these galamsey pits, don't you think that it will be enticing for them to go and do this kind of these illegal activities that you are trying to stop by spending taxpayers' money? So, I mean, the government, I don't really understand. We don't really understand what is happening. The government should.
Yeah, and very critical point you're raising there. But Tajuddin, the point about the e-levy and the kind of effect government had wanted to achieve at the time should not be lost on us when making this argument. Yes, 72 billion from road tolls is significant, but the feeling is with the likes of, electronic tax measures such as the e-levy, government could be raking in far more money than the road tolls.
Well, I think that e-levy is not, government is not actually generating as much as is desired. Since the e-levy was introduced, we know if government is even doing a quarter of their revenue target on yearly basis. It is not really working as the government needed it to work. So, which is why we are thinking that all efforts should be made to kind of look for alternative sources of funding for government activities. Which is why that we think that the rule to why I did not coming out clear. Let us know why, even after it was approved in the 2023 budget, it hasn't been implemented up to now. That is a major concern. If it is about the security or if it's about the revenue losses, one of our proposals will also be to ensure there is an automated system, implement electronic system so that it is going to improve the kind of efficiency and then block the kind of leakages that government was also anticipating or experiencing during the manual collection period.
So in terms of
the government is not making the needed revenue. The government has never met half of its target on yearly basis. So which is why we are thinking that the rule tool ought to be brought back.
Yeah, but pay your projection and pay your projection. How much are we likely to rake in if we go back to the road tolls? Because mind you, there's also the associated costs that will come to that. Some of the tolling points, for instance, on the Accra-Tema motorway stretch, completely gone. We need to invest more to bring them up to standard, perhaps introduce technology. That's all coming at a cost, isn't it?
Well, there's no any projection, but the point is that, like you rightly projected on your screen, we know if for nothing at all that government was mobilizing or generating over 72 billion on a yearly basis. For us, that is enough to be able to do something as far as the implementation of government plans and activities are concerned.
Let's look at the other social measures that you're equally concerned about, and you point out in various sectors, health, agriculture, and all of them. What more could be done?
Well, we think that generally, if you look at the budget, there is some improvement in terms of the funds allocation, but some kind of improvement is needed. I have always maintained that as a country, we are always quick to sign up for international treaties, committing ourselves to be able to commit some amount of some percentage of our GDP to implement activities, but we are always falling short. For example, over 20 years ago, government went to Abuja to commit that on a yearly basis, we're going to commit at least 12% of 15% of our GDP to the health sector. As we speak now, over 20 years ago, we are doing less than 8% on a yearly basis. When it comes to agric, 10% commitment during the CAT treaty, government is doing less than 2% on a yearly basis. Look at the NHIS fund. Government was supposed to generate revenue from our SNIT contribution and then the NHIS levy, put it in the NHIS fund. But because of the capping over the years, government almost transferred less than 70% of their funds into the National Health Insurance Fund, which is why we are beginning to see most facilities are struggling to kind of attend to clients, because we are gradually going back to the cash and carry system because government is delaying and releasing claims for the payments of a health provider. So generally, there's been some kind of improvement in terms of the budgetary allocation. But of course, the concern has always been the releases. To what extent do government or does government release funds that they commit to implement key programs that will help us reduce poverty and inequality in the country?
I see. And of course, Duncan, the aspect about government looking for alternative measures in raking in funds, so we equally provide alternative jobs for your members. You're talking about the possible security implications. Why not look at that aspect of your livelihood and empowerment instead of still being fixated over a year now after the road tolls have been taking off? Why not focus on an alternative livelihood program as government or the transport ministry announced, and pursue that instead of going back to the tolling centers? Duncan, I hope you can hear me. And kindly unmute so I can hear the points you're sharing with us, Duncan.
Yes, I have. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you and I know that it's been 2 years since the government made that promise of finding alternate livelihood for us, and 2 years of sitting in a house and then nothing like alternate livelihoods that's even been presented to us. So we know that the government simply doesn't have anywhere else to take us. That is on one side. The other side is that the tolling points, it's something that not this government, it's not the doing of this government, or it's not the establishment of this government, this present administration. It's for the government of Ghana. And so if for one reason or the other you want to scrap it, it should go through the right process. It should go through Parliament, so for Parliament to really discuss it in depth before it is implemented. And like my brother rightly said, the government needs revenue urgently. The tolling points or toll collection, you don't need too much revenue to operate toll collections. You don't need too much money to operate it. It's just that now that the structures have been destroyed, that is where you need to put money in, of course, before. But toll collections, I don't know any business that is more profitable than toll collection, because, you're giving me figures, but the figures that I have for 20 of the major tolls, we're making over 200,000 cedis a day. For just 20 of the major tolls, we're making over 200,000 cedis a day. So you can imagine all these monies. And then also, I know this point is unpopular with drivers and all, but when you compare the rate that we are paying in Ghana to that of our neighboring countries, or even to if you put it side by side, all other toll collections in any other country, ours is the lowest. It's unfortunate. Drivers might not like this, but that is what it is. Ours is very low. And so if the government really needs to generate money or wants a lot of revenue from it, they can look at adjusting it upward a little bit, so that they can make enough money. But then the key factor or the key point is that the money that is generated should be put to good use.
I see.
To the use for which those toll stations were established, or the toll system was established.
Okay.
That money should be put to that use, so that the people who are paying, the committees, the drivers who are paying, will know that indeed the money they are paying is reflecting on the roads. It's just ironic that sometimes where you pay the toll is where you will get your flat tire because of a pothole, or because of an iron rod sticking out from a pothole.
I see.
It's just so sad.
And Tajuddin, the point about, so that reflected in your report as well, I must point out, the point about our tax to GDP ratio. You've done some analysis on that as well, bringing us to somewhere below the 15.3 plus percentage average for about 33 other African countries. That's what you have in your report. But the point is, in whose interest? The citizenry are happy not paying so much, yet the government wants more. You find that hard to balance almost all the time, isn't it?
I'm not sure it is about the point of citizens being happy about the fact that government. You see, there had been a kind of there have been a lot of calls, not just from civil society, but even from the citizens. Like my brother actually mentioned, I think the point about Ghanaians' attitude towards paying taxes, the fact that most of the time we don't know how the taxes are used. And so if I pay tax and at the end of the day, I'm aware that government is going to use the tax to address my welfare, I'll be interested to pay. The difficulty is that we pay taxes. At the end of the day, we don't know how our taxes are being used. He just mentioned the fact that at the point that you pay the toll is the same point that you have a flat tire. It means that our rules are not even, there are so many challenges. And so the bottom line is that Ghanaians want to know how their taxes are being used. It is not the case that Ghanaians generally don't like paying taxes. That is the difficulty that we have.
I see.
It's about the utilization.
Yeah, and we'll keep being on the lookout for the need for us to mobilize more revenue. And in fact, speaking about how poor the road network is, I must say thank you to, of course, Tajuddin and also Duncan for joining us on the conversation this afternoon on the Pulse Back.